Hey, what's up?
Ba, 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 ba. We need intro music, don't we?
Fode and Bede talk Star Wars intro music. It would have to be Hut music.
Hut music?
Hut inspired.
Really?
Podcast music, I guess?
Just not Jedi Rocks from Return of the Jedi. I hate that song.
Jedi Rocks?
So that's the special edition change in Return of the Jedi, where it has that crazy... So the band in Return of the Jedi play the music.
At the end?
No, not at the end. In Jabba's palace. That's in Jabba's palace.
Oh, they do change it. Yeah, you love to...
Jedi Rocks is
like,
the name of the soundtrack.
That's the name of
track.
It? It's like bow bow jicka bow wow jicka bow.
And it's got that terrible CGI alien who like singing, and it like the camera goes down the alien's throat, and you see the alien's uvula, and it's so atrocious. Okay, anyway, so Fode and Bede talk Star Wars. We need intro music eventually. Fode and Bede talk Star Wars. We are doing a series. This is episode 1 of our series. We are going to analyze, rationalize,
make excuses for.
Yep. Make excuses for Star Wars' most controversial plot points. And really, I just wanted to talk about them. That's all.
It's an interesting part of the fandom. You know, like they say Star Wars fans are the worst fans. Yeah. Of almost any fandom, because they're always fighting and debating over things. And
we're all kind of terrible people, really deep down.
That's what they say. J.J. Abrams, he hates us all, you know.
We criticize everything. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go over all the different things from the films, this is only the films, that people have criticized over the years and questioned, criticized, maligned. Basically, just talk them through as kind of like a therapy for us, right?
Yeah, well, because I want Star Wars to be perfect, but it's not. And, George Lucas is the one who flies the most fast and loose with the plot points to fit how he does it, because he's the creator. So I feel like everyone else is just picking up the pieces after he comes through. We
should do some stats on who has the most grievances against them. Like, which Star Wars creator has the most grievances against them?
Dave Filoni would be the least.
I have a list of 34. We might add more or subtract some, but we are not doing all 34 now. We're just going to go really dive into these plot points, talk them out, and rationalize, analyze, and maybe even suggest ways to fix some of them.
Yeah, and I have a few ones that I off the top of my head that I've been throwing around for a while, like, and there's a few actually plot holes that I instinctually, almost subconsciously in the movie theater rationalized without even really like verbalizing it to myself. It was just an assumption. Like, you get that quick assumption about something that you don't like in the movie, and it's like, the movie's good again.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. You're right about that. And it's like, basically, like you said, we want Star Wars to be perfect, but it has some blemishes on it. And then even over time, sometimes you learn to love the blemishes, you know? So some of these plot points, even though they're controversial, I actually like. So let's dive into it. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, the first one. We're going to go in chronological order for the movies. And this is going to be a multi-part series. But the first one...
Ongoing.
From episode 1. But tying back to the original trilogy, and this is basically because of the timing of the release of the movies. But the first plot point is Qui-Gon is Obi-Wan's master and Yoda is not? Question mark? Weird.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So this stems from Empire Strikes Back.
From Obi-Wan being a serial liar.
Well, there you go, yeah. This is Obi-Wan's trial should be one of our episodes.
That would have to, or it's just he tells tall tales.
He does. Or maybe he's going senile in the desert.
Maybe. Well, he went senile in the desert and then he died, so I guess you gotta give him a little bit of slack.
Yeah, so going back to like what the actual plot point is that in Empire Strikes Back, Obi-Wan appears to Luke on Hoth in a vision and says, go to Dagobah, train with Master Yoda. He's the Jedi Master who instructed me. And so, growing up, did you assume, like I did, that Yoda was Obi-Wan's real master?
Well, I don't want to go too early and already trying to fix it, but yeah, I assumed it was just he was his master that trained him, but I didn't have any concept of master and apprentice yet, because that wasn't brought together into the prequels. That wasn't the rule of two in the Jedi form, whatever. Not the rule of two, but you know what I mean. The whole concept of master and apprentice wasn't a thing in the original trilogy. So
yeah, I actually kind of thought I'm trying to go back into my original trilogy mindset before the prequels came out, and I kind of felt like Yoda was training Obi-Wan in the same way he trained Luke, which seemed like more advanced training. Then later, when you see in Episode 2 that Yoda kind of trains all the younglings in a classroom setting,
he's everyone's
almost
master.
Like Hogwarts style.
It is a little Hogwartsy.
But so, anyways, to finish summarizing the point, you may have assumed that Yoda and Obi-Wan had a true master-apprentice relationship that was very similar to maybe what Yoda and Luke had. But then Episode 1 comes out, and there's this whole new character, Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon is clearly Obi-Wan's master, not really Yoda.
Yeah.
So that's the plot point.
So,
have you ever thought about this before the podcast?
Yeah, and I always rationalized it with saying that, like you said, like Yoda trained everybody.
Yeah,
but he's the Grand Master, which is.
Well, what about before Episode 2, where you really didn't see that scene where he's training the kids? What about after Episode 1, before Episode 2? What were your thoughts when you saw this Qui-Gon character and he was Obi-Wan's master?
No, I just assumed. I didn't think Yoda was everyone's master then. It wasn't until I saw that scene in Episode 2 that made me really rationalize it. Before that, it was just a plot hole.
Yeah?
It was just a plot hole. And then I guess it got filled.
I'm trying to think back, I can't really remember this, but I think that I remember being confused even like before Phantom Menace came out with some of the marketing, because you have this new character, Qui-Gon, or at least in the very first scene when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are at the Trade Federation ship. In the back, when I'm watching the movie, probably in theaters, I remember loving that first few scenes.
Oh, it was the best, yeah.
Where they're fighting battle droids. And
and they're at the gas chamber, and they just light it up. They come out. You see a lightsaber go into a wall for the first time.
Yeah, say what you will about your
stuff.
Thoughts about what the Phantom Menace was when it first came out, when you came out. In the theater, watching that sequence, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. But I think even when I was in the moment with the visuals of it, like I was thinking, why is this guy Obi-Wan's master? Okay, so we talked about the plot.
Totally new character, awesome character, by the way. Probably my favorite.
Oh my god, yes. So, if you had to, do you think this plot point, the difficulties with it, that it kind of is a retcon? I mean, is that a fair word?
It's a retcon.
It's a retcon, right?
I think a lot of these will be. A few will be in a gray area, but
yeah. But how do you feel about it, like in general?
If you can put that in a whole list of Obi-Wan things, like Obi-Wan had a lot of backstory things going on that were misleading or just vague enough to be anything.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the crux of a lot of these.
Yeah, Obi-Wan is kind of a fluid character, I feel, in George's mind. Like, he changed a lot.
Yeah.
Because there's that whole thing where Obi-Wan was supposed to be the brother of Uncle Owen, right? Or like,
never heard that. Oh,
you've never heard that?
Mm-mm.
That was something that I think has come up in interviews or something where George assumed that they were like brothers, or maybe that was early drafts or something, but Owen and Obi-Wan were brothers at one point in his story process, and they had a falling out or something along those lines.
The movie A New Hope does imply that, doesn't it? Where he's like, old Ben, he's this hermit, and he ran off.
Yeah. I think it implies that Owen has a history with him, for sure.
Yeah, and with Anakin, and like, in truth, he really must have only heard stories of Anakin. Anakin and Padme were, in episode 2, were on Tatooine for, they say that was, could that have been longer than a few days?
That's actually other plot points that we have is the timing of some of these Star
The timing's
Wars movies.
huge, yeah, and the episode 5 is the most egregious one.
And we're, okay, you're skipping ahead.
All right.
So if you had to just basically prosecute this plot point and say it's unacceptable, what kind of things would you say about it?
Oh, it's a mild one because
you have to play devil's advocate right now. You just say this is ridiculous.
If I had to just destroy this, I'd say it was ridiculous. No, I can't. It was vague. It was Obi-Wan was saying the Jedi Master who instructed me, and that implies like a personal instructing relationship, and it also doesn't give you any idea of what a Grandmaster is.
Yeah,
the whole hierarchy of Jedi is a complete mystery up until the prequels come out. It's all up in the air until then, and then he just added to it to his convenience. And he wanted to have a Qui-Gon character.
How dare George though do that to him?
He's the worst, and I can't fault it for it because we got Qui-Gon out of that.
Okay, well now we're going into defending the plot point, and
I
totally agree.
I can't not defend it.
No, I totally agree with you.
I copped out on that one.
This is definitely like a plot point that I'm in favor of because we got Qui-Gon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you kind of what you're asking is, would you have made this decision making the movies? Would you make that sacrifice of the plot point in order to further the story? And in this one, great success.
Yeah, because I think George needed a true Jedi type character that like is morally kind of right.
Yeah, like an ideal Jedi or like a Jedi to hold the other ones in comparison to.
Yeah,
right? Like so, all Jedi are compared to Qui-Gon.
Yes,
because he is really the father figure,
and he stands against, not like in a super hardcore way, but he stands juxtaposed to what the Jedi Council,
the Order,
acts like. So like George needed that, and probably when he was writing the prequels, I bet you he had Yoda as Obi-Wan's.
He probably did.
Master for a little bit, but then I think he may have changed his mind because of he needed the Qui-Gon character, but also maybe he changed his mind because of special effects.
I was gonna say it could have been a practical choice. It probably wouldn't. It would have been difficult, especially with the special effects back then.
Yeah,
to have Yoda doing all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be all for it now.
But. Well, okay, so going now, I really do appreciate that we have this slight inconsistency, and you're right, it's mild. It's
There's way worse ones on this list.
Yeah. But so I would say this is totally acceptable plot deviance, and
we don't have to do remakes of the movies.
No, we don't have to remake it, or
we need another 11 movies,
or have a petition.
We just got to start over.
Yeah. But okay, so if you were going to change anything about it at all, would you change anything?
Well, like I said, Qui-Gon is an important character. He puts the Jedi Order in context to what an ideal Jedi would be, one that follows the will of the Force and not politics and things, and it gives us an idea of what the idea of interstellar politics in Star Wars even means. And Obi-Wan felt that way too. Like Obi-Wan goes on about hating. He tells Anakin not to trust Padme because she's a politician. Like Obi-Wan has really strong feelings against politicians. You could infer that came from Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
What was your question?
So the question is, if you could change anything about it, would you change anything? And if so, what is it?
Well, it's not fair to say. Obi-Wan in episode 5.
Unlimited power, right?
Okay, so if I have unlimited power, then I just fix it in the easiest way possible. Would be on Hoth. Obi-Wan would say, "You'd meet the Grand Master of the ancient Jedi Order of 800 years of knowledge. Had his ship, started his own school. Just give the main highlights. You know,
So Obi-Wan just
talk them up.
He just spits off the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, just pick off the main plot points of Yoda. Just talk not just the Jedi Master who instructed me, but actually, then again, I wouldn't do that because it's the mystery that made it so cool.
It did make it cool.
And then that Yoda in the beginning, how he portrayed himself, to be this goofy random being. It was even more mysterious. That was the magic of it. So I would be killing it if I did that. So
I think if I had to change anything, I would do a little dialogue tweak like what you're saying. But okay, so we're moving on. Next plot point. You got anything else you want to say?
No, I think we're good on that one.
We have a dog attack going on in the background.
We're recording in a different house this time.
Okay, so next plot point that's on the chopping block for therapy and judgment is Jar Jar Binks.
Therapy and judgment.
Jar Jar Binks, period. That's it. Just Jar Jar.
Well, what hasn't been said about that?
Well, okay. Summarize Jar Jar Binks.
So I think Jar Jar Binks was put in there to just be like a comic relief in sorts, and also a plot mover. What do you call it? Not a MacGuffin or like the. I always mention something like the suitcase in Pulp Fiction. Like he's what moves the story forward in time. So he's the Gungan that they run into, and then he takes them to the Gungan lair, and he basically guides them, literally guides them through the planet core. But he guides the two characters, the two Jedi, through the movie, all the way through.
I never even thought about that.
That was his purpose.
Until you said that just now. But he does that again later in the film, too. Because he's the plot device that moves Padme to basically go back and fight.
Oh, he does.
Because he talks to Padme and he said, "We have a granddaughter."
He talks her in her ear, like, creepily, in the very Sith-esque way.
Yeah, Darth Jar Jar.
Yeah, Jar Jar added. Yeah, Jar Jar did. He hinted that to Padme, and you think he intended that, or he's just like rambling?
I think he was rambling.
You can't give him that credit.
No, I can't.
No, I can't.
But okay, so what are the problems with Jar Jar?
Well, people hated Jar Jar because he's just this goofy character. I think, okay, here's the biggest problem with Jar Jar. It just came to me. He takes up way too much screen time. We are so eager to see a lot of Jedi stuff and the lore. The lore needs to be built in the first episode, and we didn't get enough of it to really carry the prequels forward. We got some, but more would have been better. More is more with that. That's what we want. What I want.
So just the fact that he takes up too much screen time, I think his problems are he's just too goofy. I think its worst offense is being so goofy in the ground battle, the Battle of Naboo, where that battle. I know you said you just watched it recently and you don't like that Gungan droid battle, right?
I didn't like it that much.
I love the beginning of it, the opening of it, where you have the droids coming out and setting up and activating, and you have this army of droids facing off against these primitive Gungans with this weird shield. That is cool.
That is a common theme in Star Wars too. It's like the natives, the less technological natives.
I'm seeing some of it in Clone Wars. I've been watching some Clone Wars episodes, okay, so
it's a constant plot thing.
But
theme.
The Jar Jar, he's awful in that battle. He makes it so goofy.
Yeah, and he accidentally wins.
Yeah, which is kind of like a trope, I think, that in some other movies where somebody might accidentally get out of something and it's supposed to be funny, but it doesn't work with Jar Jar.
It was just overkill.
Yeah, it's too much. It's over the top. You know what? One goofy thing he does that I kind of appreciate though is when he spits out his tongue and tries to grab fruit.
Yeah,
and then Qui-Gon catches his tongue.
Yeah, he shows Jedi reflexes.
I thought that was kind of cool.
That was kind of cool. I guess they had to think of a way for them to show Jedi reflexes while they're sitting at a table, just chilling.
Yeah.
No, Jedi Jar Jar carries a lot of stuff. He carries a lot of weight through the story.
Right. Yeah.
Like he's kind of just like a sponge for all. If you need an event to happen so that the other characters can interact or whatever.
Yeah.
That was his purpose.
I mean, George like stuck it to the fans in episode 2 because everybody hated Jar Jar. He's like, all right, I'll dial him back, but I'm gonna make him be the deciding voice on Chancellor Palpatine's emergency powers.
Oh, he did. Oh, he was the absolute deciding.
Well, not deciding, but the one who proposed it. Yeah.
Oh, he proposed it. That's what it was.
So okay, so general thoughts on Jar Jar Binks as.
It could have, looking back now, there's so much baggage with it. I can't say. Like I said, he carries the characters and the story a bit. It's a little too much with the goofiness, and I guess he was a little too one-dimensional. That's his biggest crime.
One-dimensional?
Yeah, like we didn't get much. We didn't get much interesting. Like any deeper take on him. Later on, I guess you could argue they added a bit when he became a senator or representative. He became a representative, and so that maybe he matured a bit and has like this better purpose. So they kind of pushed it there, I guess.
So, do you love the character? Do you hate the character? Do you not care either way?
I think the character was a necessary evil.
You don't think episode 1 could exist without Jar Jar Binks?
It could, but it should have been. But there would have been another character that would have had similar issues. It could have been done way better. Like I would have an aesthetically better alien looking, a better looking alien. Yeah. It could have been done a lot better, I think. But it's still, we would not have liked that. This theoretical character I'm adding in, we probably wouldn't have liked that character either.
Do you think the execution of Jar Jar Binks deserves the crap it gets?
It's too much. But
you think it's deserved?
No. I think it's too much. I think it's too much crap that it gets.
Okay.
It's a little. I think the reason for all that was it was a generational clash. It was, the prequels had to live up to this hype of the original series, and it was again too long of a waiting time in between the two trilogies, where people were expecting just this glorious, glorious thing, and what they got were actually kind of accessible movies.
Yeah.
And I guess more so than, the fandom is so deep, and, they're like doing this gatekeeping thing where they don't want the movies to be that accessible. So they think Jar Jar just is all of that in one. All of that anger. He's his lightning rod.
My general thoughts with Jar Jar is that he's just a little bit too much. He's too over the top, but you could keep the character and just slightly dial him down, and it wouldn't be that bad. The things that I hate the most about Jar Jar, and I can't think of an exact example right now, but I'm thinking like sometimes he gets close enough to breaking the fourth wall, like.
I could. Yeah.
Can you think of an example?
He's a little. He's a little meta.
Yeah, he. It's almost like he sometimes stares at the camera when he does something goofy or something.
Well, he does a lot of exposition. That was another of his job. He explains like the set and setting at the beginning and all that. He's just this lightning rod for he does all the heavy lifting of the work so that the good characters that we like can just live in this world. Like he's there to build the world.
Yeah.
And no one likes exposition.
I think his biggest crime is deflating the final battle scene for me.
Yeah,
I
would agree with you with that. It kind of lowered the stakes of it.
Yeah. Okay, if you were going to defend the addition and actual exact execution of Jar Jar Binks the way we have it, if you're going to defend that, what would you say? I would defend that.
Look, the kids needed a character to latch onto to make the movie enjoyable. And
what age kids?
Oh, like 2?
2?
Yeah. 1? No.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking it's not 7-year-olds.
No.
7-year-olds watch Star Wars original trilogy and they don't need a character like that. I think it's lower than that. It's not 7. It's probably lower.
Yeah, that's an issue. I guess it would be lower than that. I mean, that character doesn't define the prequels. I mean, the prequels are good, so it was just a purposeful character to maybe as just like a shoehorn, like give the kids something that entertain them while the parents are at the theater. Maybe that's what he was trying to do, trying to make this all around. You know, that's a mistake people make with a lot of movies. They try and make them appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be one or two things that are going to be awkward about it. Like,
yeah. Okay, so if you, what do you, your final thoughts on it? Would you change something, or do you think it's acceptable?
I would make him less of a comic relief. Like, we don't need constant comic relief throughout the movie. Maybe a little bit once or twice, but that's it. Like,
so what will your changes be? Like, not, you don't have to be too specific, but is that it? You would just slightly play down his gag jokes?
I would play down his gag jokes, and I accept the fact I would use him for exposition and like to drive the movie forward like he did. Like, I think that was needed because they're introducing a whole new world. You know, it's episode 1, so they need a character to kind of pull us back into that world.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would change, not much.
Not much.
Not much.
Would you let him step in poop on Tatooine?
No.
So you cut that out.
I cut that. That's
Okay.
all. That's cut. We need more Jedi time, like
Okay.
training time. Yeah, we never even got to see any of Anakin's training at all. Like you see at the very end, he just has the
braid.
The braid. Didn't get to see any of it.
Okay. I don't know if I really would do this if I had unlimited power and money. But I think a good way to change Jar Jar Binks would be to take a lot of what I see from Captain Tarpals, which is the other Gungan, who's the Captain Gungan.
He's a more serious character.
He's a more serious character, and if you just kind of replace Jar Jar with Captain Tarpals, you pretty much
That's a
got
good idea.
your fully CGI person, because George is always trying to push the boundaries, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure that was a pet project of his. He wanted a fully CGI character. So you have Captain Tarpals, and he's an alien, and he's just more serious. And you can even have him do things like try to snag a piece of fruit with his tongue and get caught by Qui-Gon or something.
Yeah, that'd be still in character, I guess.
Yeah, because
Gungans are naturally goofy in a bit.
yeah. So he's still slightly goofy, but he's just not. And he's kind of a military person. I think Captain Tarpals is underrated because we don't see much of him. And if you just took him and made him the Jar Jar Binks character, I think it would be a great fix.
That's a great idea.
Thanks.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's like they picked the worst Gungan. And even the Gungans hate Jar Jar.
I know. Yeah. So that's one issue we would have to work out.
Get
Is
rid of that clumsy thing.
How do you make Captain Tarpals like disliked by Boss Nass? But that could be like real cool story, right? That this serious captain in the Gungan guard or military or whatever had a falling out in the with Boss Nass. It's almost more interesting than Misa Clumsy.
yeah, that's it. Like, there's no other explanation of why. It's just like,
he fell into the Boss Nacebula or whatever it is.
Yeah, didn't he
does explain
it. Kill a bunch of people?
I think maybe he did. Yeah. Okay, so that's what I would fix. So with that idea, if you literally had all the power and money in the world, would you actually go do that? Would you do a special edition of episode 1 and put Captain Tarpals?
Yeah.
You would do it?
Yeah, I'd do it. For sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Because
So
you made it more reasonable by adding the Captain Tarpal to it. Like, before I had to do like this hypothetical creature. I was imagining a red Twi'lek personally. But
a red Twi'lek?
yeah.
We need more red Twi'leks.
We don't have any.
We need Darth Talon,
We need all of
the
it.
red Twi'lek, who's pretty beautiful.
Hardcore.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. We're going in chronological order, so in this episode, it's probably going to be mostly prequel.
Yeah, yep. We're going through the prequels now.
But
We have episode 2 on in the background, so it fits.
Oh, this is my least favorite part of episode 2. In the background, it's the droid factory.
The droid factory. Padme does this kind of Looney Tunes thing where she gets through.
Yeah, well, that and
there's a lot of suspense in this scene, though.
Anyway. We were before we started the podcast. We were talking episode 2 praises, so we're allowed to critique this.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, so Anakin in the movie as a young boy. Basically, this plot point is the decision by George Lucas to start the story and start the first movie where Anakin is just a child. And then also the execution of that by Jake Lloyd and by George Lucas's directing. So, Anakin as a young boy, what are your general thoughts?
So I know we've talked about this in the past. Someone kind of rehashed the original trilogy, and he completely took out episode 1, and he started it off with episode 2, 3, and like he had like an episode. Yeah, episode 1, 2, and 3, and episode 1 was like starting in the pre-Clone Wars time, like Attack of the Clones, and then at the middle episode would be the Clone Wars movie,
sure,
and then Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah,
which makes sense. So he's like, we don't need to see Anakin as a child, and I'm torn on that because I remember being so like smitten by seeing Anakin leave Tatooine, and it was just like the beginning of his big journey, and it was like this thing like, oh, you got to see like right where he came from, and just like he went from there to Darth Vader, and that was like, I liked that, but a whole movie of that, I don't know. It could have been like a flashback or something.
Okay, so episode 1, are you consider that the whole not the whole movie? I know what you're saying, but like, do you consider the fact that maybe you would have done something different with episode 1 then, at the timing of it?
My episode 1 would definitely be Anakin as a teenager, like right before his trials, like maybe like as he's training with Obi-Wan, kind of nearly before his trials. And then they do exposition where they talk about Obi-Wan's fight with Darth Maul and Qui-Gon. I guess I have to omit Qui-Gon then, or maybe Qui-Gon doesn't die, and then he's in there, and then he dies in there, and that sparks something, like some plot with it, and then that becomes the problem with Obi-Wan and Anakin's like schism, like where that could be like a catalyst for his eventual turn, Anakin's eventual turn, but it would have been maybe cool to see more of like a Harry Potter movie where he's going through the Jedi training, and then you start seeing the hints of
Jedi
his dark, his, and then the pressures of that he's going through, and then
that's almost like a Voldemort story.
Yeah,
like so Tom Riddle in the school. Wasn't there talk about how awesome Tom Riddle was or something, and that bloated his ego
when he was a kid?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Or when he was like a handsome kid, and he was manipulative. And he got the teachers to kind of do what he wanted, and that was the thing with the professor. But he was like just a perfect sociopath.
So it's not really the same. I was thinking like something along the lines that Tom Riddle was the chosen one, almost.
No, that was it turned out to be like it was going to be Neville, and it was like this whole thing, but. Voldemort's a completely a character that you can't like feel it with, like Anakin's a character you can identify with. Voldemort's a psychopath, like no one can identify with Voldemort. But
Voldemort's like Palpatine.
Yeah, he would be more like Palpatine. So like what I'm saying is like it would be maybe the start of the movie would be the pressure of him leading to be the trials, and you see how you're not a Jedi until you become a Jedi Knight, how difficult it is to finally like set the tone for how difficult it is to become a Jedi. And that's what Yoda would talk about when he was talking to Luke about how you have to have the most serious mind, and whatever he was saying, like put all of that to screen of what Yoda was talking about in episode 5.
So if you were going to do something like that and not show him as like, a 10-year-old and be more involved in the Order, would you still keep the Chosen One plot point, or would you do something?
Now,
what you just described did not mention the Chosen One. The fact that he has the Chosen One label.
Yeah, I don't like the whole Chosen One thing in general. But
well, that's another plot point.
that's,
So.
that's a huge part of Star Wars, and
Yeah.
they expanded on it in the Clone Wars with Mortis and how these Force ghost creature, the father and the daughter and the son, and how they were seeking balance, and then it was all gonna just coalesce in this one person to create this balance. It's all very like a Christianity story. So I feel like it's that thing, which I guess he gets that from Joseph Campbell and all that. Again, it all comes from that the Alchemist story. So I guess there has to be a chosen one. I think it's played out nowadays, as far as in movies, but I guess the movies wouldn't be what they were if you took that out.
Well, even like in the we're moving on to a different plot point, but okay, going back to Anakin as a young boy. So you basically just you would rather have something different.
I would want to see him struggling in the Jedi Order, like being a prodigy, but having issues, like maybe he's getting too much attention from that.
So, let's say this.
We can start off where he gets off Tatooine. Like, you set the stage where you want to start the series off on Tatooine because it ends on Tatooine.
Okay.
So he would be on Tatooine, and you see his escape of getting off, not being a slave, however he gets off. But it wouldn't be the whole point of the movie. Maybe that could be just the first act. Okay. And then there would be like a time skip, and then it goes into his training and the issues with that. And then the third act, and so his training would be the second act. And the third act would be all the politics and things leading up to the beginning of the Clone Wars. And then the Clone Wars would be the next movie.
Like
it's too much.
That's too much for a movie.
Make it as long as The Last Jedi.
I just don't think it would actually
flow,
play like a movie, So, but okay, if you had to
make 4 movies.
Okay, that's fine. We should have had 4 movies.
20 movies.
So this is one, this is the first one where you're basically saying, I'll change it. I would have done something different.
Yeah.
This is it. This is where you're gonna draw the line in the sand.
I'll commit to saying, I would change Episode 1. I would make it more about Anakin and not just like this movie about the Gungans and the Proto-Empire and all this stuff. I would have made it just about Anakin's training, about the Jedi Order, and really dig into more about the politics of the Jedi Order in relation to the Republic, the Senate, and really set the stage for what that is. Because that stuff we didn't really... It was kind of thrown in there in the prequels. It was all underlying, but we didn't see it. We saw a lot of action and all this. But the politics of it was kind of just in the background. I would have loved to see more of real deep. I mean, there's a deleted scene in Episode 2 where the Separatists, Bail Organa and Padme have a discussion about, they think Palpatine's taken over and what are we going to do? And that was just political intrigue. There should have been more of that to really show how empires arise.
Well, what you're describing sounds like a lot of Clone Wars episodes.
Mm-hmm.
In Clone Wars, you do see that.
You can see all of Clone Wars as a retcon project in and of itself.
So, that's a good point. You could see Clone Wars of their way of giving you what you wanted, out of the...
It totally is. And I know George talked about... he wanted to show Anakin in a more relatable light than he was shown in the prequels. In the prequels, he was...
Yeah, right.
It was mostly his negative side, and you wanted to make him more of you want to see him being good to his equals in these characters. I don't know where I heard this from, but you wanted to show him interacting with Ahsoka and interacting with his equals and his brothers. Not in the movies, he's always interacting with his superiors, and he always has issue. He's always taking issue with his superiors, and it's just that's his only dynamic.
Yeah, you're right about that. So I'm actually going to go totally opposite of you in that I love this one. And I didn't always have that thought.
I just delete it.
You just delete it?
I'm just deleting it.
You deleting what? This part of the podcast? You're going to delete episode
No, I'm deleting Episode 1 in general.
Oh, yeah. You just totally revised Star Wars history, huh? So I would...
It's mine now.
if I had to change anything about episode 1, it would be Captain Tarples as Jar Jar Binks.
That's a great edit.
I don't think I would change anything else with episode 1. Period. Actually, and I'm committing to that right now.
Okay.
And I didn't always feel that way. I like when people used to say, wouldn't it have been cool if we didn't have to deal with this 10-year-old boy and the actor's terrible or whatever. Or like, wouldn't it be cool if George started the story when Anakin was older or whatever? And I guess I kind of probably thought, yeah, you're probably right. But the more I watch it, like, I really love episode 1. And I think a few things have gotten me there. One is the biggest one is that, like I've said before, I have a little boy right now. He's 3.5 years old, and so he looks through Star Wars books, and he sees little Anakin Skywalker boy fixing pod racers and stuff as like one of his storybooks. And he likes that. He thinks it's cool because the little boy is fixing this cool racing machine. So that's kind of a personal connection, but it's interesting.
That's a good point. No, like it does, like, and that was what you're saying is good about the movie. Is like also what most people criticized about the movies. Like they thought they took this special Star Wars, they took this special trilogy that people loved and made this whole universe of ideas for headcanon or whatever you call it, and then they made it like a kids movie. And that's what was driving the new fans crazy. But that's also the best thing about it.
Yeah, like I think that the only Star Wars movie that has caught my son's attention for a long period of time is episode 1.
It makes sense.
So I get the criticism that it seems like a childish movie, because it is a little bit. But then the other thing about episode 1 is that I totally buy into Anakin's story that George is trying to throw at me, which is he was attached to his mother. You see that, and he leaves his mother thinking that he's on this grand adventure to become this super awesome Jedi, but Yoda and them were right. Like, he was too old. He had different ideals than what they wanted from him. And I think it's important to see that. I think it's important to see that he's attached and was too old. He's a kid.
He had attachment early on.
But he's too old. He loves his mother. His mother's a great mother. The scene where they leave each other is really kind of heartbreaking.
That was the scene I was thinking of when I was saying, like, at the beginning of his story.
Yeah.
You know, like that, like, you know.
So that would have been your first act, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, I probably would have started the movie maybe around there. Like, I at first I said maybe a flashback. It's like, no, because the movie needs to start on Tatooine.
Well, maybe if you really did have that act, still maybe have that dynamic in it, and then somehow made it flow like a real movie
if I really
to the other acts that you were talking about it, then I might buy into it more. But so the mother-child relationship I think is super important in episode 1. And then the final reason I like it is because he's so freaking innocent in episode 1.
Yeah.
And then he becomes freaking Darth Vader.
Yeah, he just gets worse and worse and worse.
So you really get the this is an innocent child who really turned into almost Hitler. You know?
And that's why people have issue with Attack of the Clones, though, because it showed him, you know, he was this character that people liked, and then he had to do this switcheroo where it shows his angst and how he's changed and all this.
I get that criticism.
And that's why people, you know, and people just hated on Hayden for that, but I don't think it had anything to do with him.
Right. So what do you think about Jake Lloyd's legit acting skills?
I think he did great.
I think he did fine.
I think he did better than Macaulay Culkin did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he did great.
I think he did fine. He just acts like a little boy. It's not like he's a terrible actor. He just acts the part.
That has never even been a remote thought in my mind that was an issue.
Yeah.
I totally bought into that just fine.
All right.
Like just this prodigy kid, you know.
Any other thoughts on this one?
No, I guess I have a lot to think about trying to rewrite the whole movies, but
that would be a whole. That would be a cool project.
That'd be a whole episode, re-episodes.
We could do that one episode.
Didn't we? We thought about doing it, and then we went back on it.
Well, it's hard for me to do. I guess I could do it as a thought experiment, but like
Yeah.
I wouldn't rewrite episode 1.
I would.
My point.
Yeah, that would be too much.
Except I would put Captain Tarples in place of Jar
We might work on that.
Okay, so what's our time? What are we at?
GarageBand doesn't give you a time.
Oh, okay.
I'll
Well,
set a timer next time on my phone.
let's go to the next one.
I know how I can time it though.
This is our 4th
Through your text.
plot point, and it is drum roll. Midichlorians.
No, not midichlorians. We're 30 minutes in, by the way.
Okay.
So, or like 35.
Okay. Midichlorians. Controversial, no?
Yeah, some people think it ruined the whole series.
Yeah, I mean, it's like kind of if you think of
Freaked out.
Jedi as a religion, midichlorians is a huge development in the dogma of the religion, and it's almost like when midichlorians came out, we had like the Protestant Reformation or something, where it was like
it's a schism.
A schism. Okay, so general thoughts on midichlorians.
So the midichlorians thing. So I'll just open up with what it took away. Originally, the Force was something you could earn.
Yeah.
Like you imagine like a Buddhist monk just meditating for a year and gaining this insight. Like so,
Yeah.
that was kind of what they thought. They thought that anybody could have the Force, and George Lucas is like, no, you're born with it. it's biological, and there's only 10 to 50,000 of you in the whole galaxy.
Yeah.
So it became this exclusive club, this like Skull and Bones Society thing. So I think that was the real killer, why people initially had that just insane reaction to it. But when you learn about what he was talking about with the Journal of the Wills, and how he really did, and how he talked about the will of the Force, and how these midichlorians were actually supposed to. The whole question of the whole series was going to be about free will, and about how these characters are deciding to go along with or go against like their guided plan. So it almost like these characters are just robots, like fulfilling the Force's will, and the midichlorians were just facilitating that. And as some article I read, but George said he kind of backtracked on that because he thought people would hate that idea, but that is what he originally had written down for when he had the series. It was just that was the lore of the Force that he had originally.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, it became part of the thing, and it's a good way to explain Force power levels.
Yeah, it does have like a metric type.
It gives you a gauge, right?
Yeah.
So you can only imagine what Rey's midichlorian count would have been.
Yeah. We'll get that in episode 10. When she reestablishes the Jedi Order and midichlorian counts become important again, because just repeat all.
You just get a blood test, and then if you pass the blood test, you're in. It's like Gattaca. Well, I mean, at least it added a level of. Well, it like took away the mystique, right? But it added like a plot point, the idea of the chosen one, and like how he would figure out this kid is the chosen one.
Yeah, you're right. It does have to serve. It serves a purpose in episode 1.
Yeah.
That is how they think he's the chosen one. Plus that he's a virgin birth or whatever. But
yeah, but that's that aside. It's totally like the Jesus Christ story.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Do you think they could have told, like, if they had blood tests in ancient times, they could have figured out Jesus's
midichlorian count
through blood test?
They would have tried.
They would have, yeah. My general thoughts on it is like I really don't care that much.
I can feel you. Well, I think the more interesting aspect of it is what I talked about with the wills and them not having free will, and like the midichlorians kind of just having them do the actions, like, and like everyone's an NPC kind of thing. That's the weird. That's where it gets weird for me. That interests me. The rest of it is whatever.
Literally, the idea is that the microscopic organisms that are inside you are making you do things.
They're compelling you to follow the will of the Force and to carry out this predestined
whatever
idea.
Destiny it is yours.
Yeah.
The midichlorians control that.
Yeah, everything is like completely hard deterministic.
Well, that's probably like
universe.
That's the perfect word for it, because determinism is basically like if you knew the right amount of atoms, like
if you had a computer powerful enough.
If you had a computer powerful enough and you could break down the entire universe in like, let's just call them atoms. They're not really atoms, but like you knew the position in nature of every atom on day one, and
predict how they'd interact with each other.
The forces that are going to push them in which direction, you could tell what's going to happen in day 77 or whatever, So, if the midichlorians are just really microscopic organisms, I get what you're saying. So
he wanted to make it genetic, and he wanted to make it like this metaphysical force. Guiding.
He doesn't get there in episode 1. He makes it genetic, but he doesn't get to that whole fate thing yet.
And that
determinism thing.
Yeah,
and so that's what he's saying. He said he wanted to get there one day.
He said he wanted to get there, and I guess people freaked out about the midichlorian thing, and he backtracked it. He downplayed it, but then what are we left with? We're left with just hereditary force powers, which is like lame.
Which is also, like I've talked about before, one of my other favorite fandom is X-Men comic books, not the movies. I have to be clear about that.
They're the greatest movies ever made.
Okay, so that's midichlorians just makes it like Jedi are mutants, basically.
Yeah, it's just this hereditary thing, but it still takes training, like
Still did, yeah.
Just like Ray
was for X-Men.
Ray was swimming in Machina. Ray was like half midichlorian, in mass, and she just felt in her mind this force, is guiding her.
My bottom line general thoughts are like I just don't care. Like I get what it doesn't matter to me.
You're not passionate one way or the other. Like the hate, it doesn't deserve all the hate that it gets, because it's just whatever.
I nothing about it matters to me. Maybe it's because I'm an X-Men fan and it kind of lines up that way. I don't know.
Harry Potter's the same way. Even going back to that, it's hereditary.
Yeah. Harry Potter, you got witches and muggles.
But like you could go back to Dave Filoni saying Star Wars is about family, and this the Force is strong. Skywalkers, and it is like a family line of this power,
right?
So it's not completely out of touch with the main story.
Well, in Return of the Jedi,
just did the crime of describing it.
Luke says the Force is strong in my family. My father,
exactly.
There were foundations of that idea that it was genetic already in there,
Yeah, so it's not that
and then
bad.
George has Qui-Gon talk about microscopic organisms. Everybody loses their mind.
It's just weird. It's weird when you just say it.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so if you had to defend midichlorians, the idea of midichlorians,
well, they gave Qui-Gon a way of figuring out the chosen one.
I think that's a good defense.
They give you a metric.
That's just a purely plot device defense.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's good. It just means it was useful.
Yeah. Well, you got anything that would make it like? What if it was okay? Do you have any defense of the concept of midichlorians just because it's a good concept?
No.
No.
No. Like his whole thing with the wills is interesting and could be a good concept if it was fleshed out. But the whole cells in your... Well, okay, so life creates the Force, right? And the midichlorians are like the Force's commissaries or whatever, like they're liaisons.
Mm-hmm. I like that word.
So it's a good word. It's good. It's good how at least the midichlorians aren't the Force. At least midichlorians are speaking for the Force. They're sensitive to the Force, which is good. At least it's not like more direct. Like midichlorians are the thing.
Do you think midichlorians have consciousness, or do you think they're just kind of like tools of the Force? They're kind of like unconscious tools of the Force.
They kind of hint almost that it is a conscious thing.
Qui-Gon says they speak to us.
Yeah.
So,
the Force speaks to us through them, or do they? They speak to us.
The midichlorians are constantly speaking to us. Something like along. I think the line is close to that.
And that's the voice that Rey heard in her head before she understood what a Jedi even was. All right, well,
it's a little weird, huh?
It's just destiny calling. Why couldn't it just be like a feeling? Like, I don't know.
Every time you say a feeling, I hear Finn's voice.
A feeling.
A feeling.
Well, that was when he figured it out. You know, it's like, you know what, me too.
All right, so would you change midichlorians?
I would take it out just completely.
You would.
Yeah, like I don't know how I would fix the plot hole of him trying to figure out he's the chosen one. Maybe just the fact that you could do the pod racing.
I don't think you really need. I think you could just say he does the pod racing. He's super fast reflexes.
Or you could just be like, I feel it.
Or Qui-Gon just says, I feel it.
Yeah,
that works too.
That saves time.
No, yeah, Qui-Gon goes up to the Jedi Council with Anakin and he's like, this is the chosen one, and they ask why. He says, it's a feeling.
I feel it. And they're like, all right, well, do the card test thing. He's like,
okay. Would I change it? I don't think I would change it because
is it complicated?
I don't care.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I don't think I would change it because I don't care, and then also I think it's kind of fun to watch people squirm about it.
That was truly controversial.
It was.
That was a truly because we were debating whether even using that word for this podcast, because not all these things are quote unquote controversial. That one is controversial.
It is. But like I never really bought into it either way So yeah, I don't think I would change it only because I think it's fun to talk about and watch people squirm about it a little bit sometimes. But okay, moving on to plot point number 5. This is a doozy. Okay,
I'm ready.
This is in chronological order because it stems from episode 1, but it goes across all the episodes.
Yeah, so, this is a prequel episode right here.
So who is the chosen one?
Count Dooku.
All right, let's move on then.
sorry.
I'm glad we settled this.
Yeah, that's all. So who is the chosen one? It was Anakin. But you know, I saw this. It was an interesting thing about Count Dooku thought he was the chosen one, or he wanted to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he saw himself as the chosen one, and Palpatine's perfect apprentice. I forget why. I can't really expound on that, but it's just take it as a fact.
All right, so let's boil this down. Qui-Gon thinks Anakin is the chosen one. That's in episode 1. He's heard the prophecy. He sees this boy. He's got these force powers and precognition, and he tests his midichlorian count, and then he hears the mom, who seems like a reliable narrator, but maybe she's not. Maybe she's just lying.
Right?
Have we ever talked about that?
I mean, Shmi
could have been lying.
Shmi's a pretty like wholesome seeming human.
Yeah.
But did Qui-Gon just take her word for it? It's right then and there?
It seemed like in that scene he was like totally sold.
Like there's no Doubting Thomas character in Star Wars.
Yeah. There needs to be a Doubting Thomas.
Maybe Jar Jar Binks could have been the
or Jar Jar / Captain Tarple.
He's like, this is no such a chosen one. This makes no sense. She's not a virgin.
Boss and Bass told us of the story of the chosen one. This doesn't line up. Misa don't think so.
Every race has its own chosen one. There's like a Twi'lek chosen one. So the Gungans have their own mythology on it.
Right. Yeah.
It's weird. It's all just supposed to be a Christian allegory. That's the whole thing.
Okay,
that's the whole thing.
Let's go back to the original trilogy. This didn't exist. Chosen One did not exist.
Right.
So, what do you think about introducing it as the concept in general?
I would no.
You would
no.
take it away.
Yeah, but like I say that, it's hard to say. It's hard to say that because maybe less people would have jived with the story in general if you do, because that's a concept that people just connect to. Like he's going back to the alchemist. He wants to the hero's journey thing. Actually, I don't know if Chosen One is part of the hero's journey. The whole
I don't
Chosen
think
One
it
concept.
is part of the hero's journey, but
Well,
it
if it's
certainly
not-
is part of most religions. I mean,
Yeah, so that's what it was. That's what it was. It was he was trying to tie our mythology of our world, our human Earth world, and he's trying to expand it outward into the Star Wars thing. That's all it is. Like, do we need a chosen one in in everything? Like Harry Potter's a chosen one. What other chosen ones are there? There's the freaking Grand Moff Tarkin. I don't know. There's just a lot of. It's overplayed now, but maybe back then it was not as overplayed, so it's okay. But
back then,
speaking now, I would just completely cut it out.
you would.
I want it to be earned.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see him earn through the skin of his teeth, earn his prodigy status.
Yeah.
Like Attack on Titan. If anyone out there watches anime, they know an Attack on Titan. Like in a lot of anime, there's a character who's just like downtrodden, small, and just not very foreboding, and you watch their journey becoming this powerful like dude, and who develops his own niche of how he becomes powerful. Oh, he's small and fast, or he's good at this or that, and it's like you watch that transformation. In this, with the whole Chosen One concept, it's just kind of handed to you.
All right. Well, if you had to, let me talk for a little bit, I guess. So, I don't mind the Chosen One thing. I wish it was sort of carried over from the prequels to the sequels, though. The sequels
Right.
pretend it doesn't exist.
And that does make it strange, yeah.
And I like it in the prequels where, the original trilogy also pretends it doesn't exist because it did not exist yet. But in the prequel trilogy, it definitely exists. You know what I like about it, though? I really do believe the Chosen One narrative thing plays in Anakin's head all the time. Because he knows everybody thinks he's the Chosen One, and he probably thinks he's the Chosen One.
And they talk about the news, how Palpatine would bump up Anakin as this hero figure in the news on Coruscant. That's in the comics or somewhere they talk about that.
If the psychology of a character walking around thinking that he's the Chosen One, like imagine Jesus knowing that he's Jesus. Like I think it was C.S. Lewis or something like that, which is a Christian author, like an older Christian author, who said that one argument for Jesus as being God is that you really only can believe 3 things about Jesus, because any other things don't really make sense. These are the only 3 things that you can choose to believe about Jesus. The first thing is that he's God because he said he was God. And the second thing is that he is an evil bastard because he knows he's not God, but he takes advantage of people, and he's an evil bastard.
Yeah, he's the charlatan.
The third thing is that he's just insane, that he has no idea, like, any grasp on reality. And so Jesus has to fall into one of those 3 categories. That's a C.S. Lewis thing. But, like, the mentality of a Christ-like figure, a Chosen One-like figure, and how they deal with everyday life is interesting to me. So I like the Chosen One thing there. But also, I think the Chosen One, that mentality that I like, also plays into Anakin's turn in Revenge of the Sith. I think part of why he might have turned is because he thought the Jedi were keeping secrets from him, especially like secrets of how to, solve death.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's the Chosen One, so he thought, how dare they keep secrets from me? So that was one way of like making him view them as antagonistic. But also, if you're the chosen one and you believe that you're really destined for something greater, maybe even believe something along the lines like, no matter what I do, it's the right thing because I'm destined to be the chosen one, then you might go kill kids if you think that's what it takes to make you fulfill your destiny.
Yeah.
So I like the chosen one.
He made this perfect zealot.
Yes, because he believes in himself.
Like a fanatic, yeah.
So much. I think that the chosen one narrative really helps Anakin's turn.
And yeah, no, for sure. And they show that in the end of the end of this Clone Wars animated series, where they talk about Anakin being at the height of his cumulative powers before he gets mutilated, and how he stands in front of the drone army, and he just cocks his head to the side to dodge a laser. Like, he's at full power levels at that point.
Yeah.
And it's just he's super confident, and that's just him at the top right there. So, you know, and that I guess that kind of hubris would lead to the downfall, as it did. And he thought the galaxy would have been his. You know, he's like, my new empire. You know, it like you don't see much of it. Mostly, like, he's a character you can relate to because he does it out of love.
Right.
But really, there is the underlying part of it where he was greedy, and he was mad because he thought he should have been made a master, even though he was in his 20s. And these masters were like ancient before, like, you know, a lot of these guys are proving themselves a million times over before they get to be a master, and he thought he would just immediately get to be a master. And I guess that all feeds into his story of his fall. Like, it's everything about Anakin's character is supposed to lead up to, like, because he's destined to be Darth Vader from the beginning. So everything about his psyche and his character is meant to just hint and hint and hint and hint about his eventual inevitable fall.
Yeah.
And you see it in Clone Wars when he just stabs the guy in the back and this and that, and in the movies. That's why he was an unrelatable character in some ways. That's why people blamed it on Hayden Christensen for just being a bad actor. That's not the case.
I think Hayden Christensen's acting is not as bad. George says it best. He's like, if they don't like Hayden, well, you've said it too about George. If they don't like Hayden, they just don't like the character of Anakin.
Yeah.
You know, because. But okay, so you stand by. You would take that chosen one narrative totally out.
Yeah.
Okay, we really do need to do a podcast about Jason's rewrite of the prequels. I feel like that would be fun.
I'm jumping in. I guess I'm being a little hubris-esque myself, but
well, I would not
change it all.
I would not take the chosen one thing out because I really like the way it plays into at least my headcanon of why Anakin fell to the dark side.
Yeah, it helps. It helps explain how that. Yeah.
I would try to make some kind of hints about it in the sequel trilogy or something, so that there was enough evidence to kind of go off of. Was Rey a chosen one too, or something like that? But okay, let's talk about. Now you have to accept the chosen one as part of the canon because it is. Who is the chosen one? You think it's Anakin?
Who? Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't think it's anybody else. Yeah, there's no reason for me to think it's anybody else.
Okay.
But I'm like the person. Let's define what the chosen one is. It's the person.
No one ever tells us what it is, so we have to.
It's all they say is it's the person that brings balance to the Force, but you don't.
Balance.
No one knows what that is.
Obi-Wan does say at the end of Revenge of the Sith, you were supposed to destroy the Sith. So maybe, at least in his head, the chosen one is supposed to destroy the Sith.
So this is a whole debate, I think, in the whole Star Wars fandom, whatever you want to call it. Just this is a thing. So people, because some people think, and it was in The Last Jedi. What Luke would say was that it was hubris, like the Force exists without Force sensitive people existing at anyway.
Yes.
You don't need Force sensitive beings for the Force to exist. The Force is just an energy that's shared between all life. You don't need Force users. It's irrelevant. Dark side, light side, it doesn't matter. And I actually kind of like that.
Yeah.
But Rian Johnson's took it to this new thing, modern thing, whatever. And then there'd be the Jedi Order's idea of what balance of the Force means, which means destroying the Sith. And being there's peace, and order, and it's the Jedi reign.
That sounds like viewing the prophecy through a Jedi lens, totally. Like killing the Sith is what the Chosen One's supposed to do.
Yeah.
That I don't think Obi-Wan's has the right viewpoint.
Yeah, it's very Jedi centric. And what would the Sith's view of the Chosen One be? Did Palpatine wanted a powerful apprentice, and he wanted to rule? He said it's the Sith's destiny is to rule. So, is that what he imagined? He imagined Anakin someday ruling the galaxy, and that is balance.
Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith has that cool line that I've never really fully understood what his real thought process was, but he says Darth Vader will become more powerful than either of us.
I loved that because I was like, whoa, Palpatine's a little more complicated than I thought.
Yeah, he is more complicated. He's not just about Palpatine. He's almost, in that line, sounds like he's more about a higher thing than Palpatine.
Yeah, which is weird. Like, you think and is that true? Is that not true? Like, is Palpatine... Well, I think... You think he would have held to that if Anakin hadn't been mutilated?
I think he might have hoped for it or something. If he had not been mutilated, I think he was hoping... I think with that one line of dialogue is the only evidence I have.
Yeah.
But,
it's enough.
I think that he was hoping that Anakin would be the ultimate Sith to overthrow him. And be the best Sith around.
And be the ruler, like the Alexander the Great kind of thing. And that's
arrogant enough to think that he could control him forever.
He probably...
Which he is arrogant.
Well, he is arrogant, but he clearly didn't. He clearly went way out of his way to try and control Anakin by telling him that he killed his kids or killed his wife.
Yeah.
So, I think he was disappointed that he was mutilated, and that he's not as good as I thought he was, and he just kind of just moved on, and then made sure just to keep him down just enough, and he can be his enforcer and just make use of him. And then he was done.
You think Palpatine's...
Do you think Palpatine even had an idea of what the Chosen One concept at all?
No, I think for sure he does, because he knows about the Jedi
lore
stuff.
Yeah.
But do you think he thought that Anakin was the Chosen One? I think maybe he did, because I think he wanted to... Or maybe he just liked the idea of taking that from the Jedi.
That's the explanation I like the best.
Where he just liked the idea of robbing them of that.
When Anakin says, "What have I done?" after he kills Mace Windu or takes part in it, he says, "You're fulfilling your destiny, Anakin." Is what he said.
So maybe in his head, the Chosen One was more like going to help him rule this, to basically get the Sith in power.
The rightful order is the Sith ruling.
Right. Yeah.
That is balanced in the Force to Palpatine.
I mean, in Maul.
It's a point of view.
True. But Maul in the Clone Wars has a similar motivation where he wants to rob Palpatine of robbing the Jedi.
Of his prize, yeah.
Of the Chosen One, right? Like, so if Palpatine really wanted to just rob the Jedi...
Oh, yeah, they get into that. Darth Maul mentions Chosen One and all that?
Well, they kind of have a debate. Ahsoka and Maul have a debate about it. Because Maul says he wants to rob Palpatine of his new apprentice. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But then Ahsoka says, Anakin... I don't remember totally, but I think Ahsoka says... Anakin's the Chosen One or something, and Anakin's supposed to... Oh, you had a dream. And Ahsoka says Anakin's supposed to do something, and then Maul says no, he's supposed to destroy everything. But it's cool. But then I love the Obi-Wan. Like, I don't watch Rebels. I haven't watched Rebels, but I've watched over and over and over again the Obi-Wan Maul fight, where Obi-Wan kills Maul in that really classic low-key fight, But then the last conversation they have is Maul asks, "Is Luke the Chosen One?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. because Obi-Wan believes that Luke is the chosen one at that point.
Yeah, and he's sacrificing 19 years of his life and hiding and yeah, like and then eventually his life for Luke to protect Luke.
And to me,
so he believes.
The one word that comes up in my head when I think about that the fact that Obi-Wan going from on Mustafar yelling at Anakin saying, "You were the chosen one," to he's on Tatooine cradling Maul saying Luke is the chosen one. It's just desperate.
It's almost like Obi-Wan is like a John the Baptist character. He's like setting the scene for Luke to arise. Which is what John the Baptist did. Like a lot of Jesus' followers were John the Baptist's followers first. And then Jesus took over after he was born.
Yeah, but this John the Baptist had the wrong one he was talking about in the beginning, and he had to switch up his idea.
Yeah.
But like, I know exactly what you're talking about. But what I was getting at is like Obi-Wan is just desperate for this chosen one thing to actually be real, that he can't let go of it. Like if he might. The logical thing maybe to do if you thought one person was the chosen one, but they decided to destroy the entire Jedi Order, would might even say the chosen one prophecy it's not real. It doesn't hold up. Like there is no chosen one.
That's what I would have said.
It makes sense, right? And actually, he's desperate to believe in the chosen one prophecy in that other Revenge of the Sith scene where he's talking to Mace Windu and Yoda, and he says, "Is he not the chosen one?" And Yoda says, "A prophecy that's misread
may have been." I liked that where he threw a seed of doubt in there.
Yeah.
When Yoda's like, "We don't know."
We don't know.
He's like, dude.
Which is usually the wisest thing to say in most circumstances.
It always is.
We don't know.
Yoda's on point, always.
And then Mace Windu has the head nod. I love the Mace Windu.
He's like,
Yep.
I do love the relationship between Yoda and Mace Windu, how they're always together. Like, they're kind of... Mace Windu has such a deep respect for Yoda, and they're always like... Even though he's so powerful, and he's like... Yeah, it's them two against the world, which is kind of cool.
It is cool.
But, so my alarm went off. That means we're an hour in, just so you know.
Okay. I got a few... We'll end on this plot point. But I was also like going down the rabbit hole of Obi-Wan's obsession or unwillingness to let go of the chosen one prophecy.
He was dedicated to it for sure.
You know why I think he is? It's because of Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's legacy is that he believed Anakin Skywalker was the chosen one.
That's that's it. Like that's been his guiding light since before he was an official Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can't let that go.
And that's why he trained Anakin, which he didn't really want to do, but he did it. That's what he said. He did it for Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
To honor Qui-Gon's memory.
And so when that messes up, his only chance of redeeming himself and Qui-Gon's vision is to make sure Luke becomes the chosen.
Yeah, well, and at the end of the day, it's like...
In his head,
when Qui-Gon was following the will of the Force, so the idea is the will of the Force is that the chosen one rises and does what he does. So... It's like the Jedi Order was fighting their own choices against the will of the Force. Which is, if you read about Qui-Gon and more about Master Fey, who followed the will of the Force so devoutly that she didn't even carry a lightsaber. That if she got killed, then it was the will of the Force. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy story. It's awesome. But that's who his role model was. Who Qui-Gon's role model was in the comics. But yeah.
Okay. I'm not ready to let go of this topic yet because we really haven't talked about the possibility that Rey could be the chosen one at all. And I think that do you think anybody really believes that?
It's like a rehash. So like the sequel trilogy is like a rehash. So she is the chosen one of the new trilogy, even if it's not said, like spoken.
Do you think the chosen?
She's the main protagonist.
Sure. Okay. So she's definitely the unofficial chosen one of the series of sequel trilogy. But do you think, given that we have the whole saga in front of us, do you think she is the chosen one?
I guess so, because like she was all the Jedi, and then Palpatine was the chosen one of the dark side. Maybe each side got its own chosen one, whereas all the that was the whole idea of that was the accumulation of all the Jedi's legends and ancestry in one person, dark side and this other person, the final battle between these two sides. And then if those two, if they had both killed each other, wouldn't that have been balance?
That would have been better, huh?
If they had just both killed it, and
just
Ben, I don't know about Skywalker would have been on the side. I don't know, and then maybe the Palpatines killed each other, and then Ben Solo's alive, and he's the last Skywalker who's alive, and he was a Sith and a Jedi, and back and forth. So he could be this gray area where he's neither, and that would be balance in Ben Solo, where he both can reside in Ben Solo as he moves forward to be a gray Jedi or whatever you want to call it, just a neither sider. And then that would be the balance, and it would all culminate inside that one person who happens to be a genetic Skywalker. That would have been good. Maybe.
All right, well, if you're looking at all the pieces of the story, though, you have Anakin is the only virgin birth, and if that's part of the prophecy, then the chosen one prophecy has to culminate in something to do with Anakin. So if it's Rey, though, how do you tie in Anakin and the Skywalker line with Rey to make it to connect the two, where Anakin's virgin birth led to Rey defeating the Dark Lord?
I mean, so
It's
Anakin,
tough to do.
So yeah, it's weird. So Anakin was conceived by midichlorians, so it was the will of the Force that he exist and then play out his role and cause what he caused. So everything he would do would be right. As far as Rey, she was kind of this she could be the dark side chosen one in a way. She was artificial. She's the daughter of a clone.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like a twisted, because the dark side is unnatural and twisted.
Yeah.
So maybe she could be the idea of the dark side chosen one, and then she just rescinded it. She denied it in the end.
That's cool.
But so you have this completely natural virgin birth, like the ultimate natural of midichlorian. Spiritual light side will, and then totally artificial on the other side.
Almost.
Science. Yeah, twisted
Dark science.
Yeah, dark
secrets
science.
only the Sith knew.
Yeah, it's weird, the idea of a clone dynasty.
Well, okay, so
that'd be my play on it, I guess.
So final thoughts are: you believe that Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one?
I believe that's the intent of it. It doesn't mean I like it.
Okay, but you would remove the chosen one thing totally.
Yeah, I would take it out and make it more about a character who had gone through stuff and then was a product of what they had gone through. But I guess, like you said, with the hubris of the idea being the chosen one, then it kind of could be both.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I think you could do. You would have to rewrite the whole trilogy, I believe, though. If you take the chosen one out, you have to rewrite the whole trilogy.
Yeah, because it's not it's about that.
A prequel trilogy, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. First episode of Most Controversial Topics.
Topics.
Let me do a sneak peek.
We cut this one pretty short. As short as we could possibly. We're trying to do shorter ones now.
So really what we did was we really only did the episode 1 once. That's what
just one movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
So this is going to be a great series, guys. Tune in next time.
All right, tune in next time. There's a lot of meat in these topics for sure.
Fode and Bead Talk Star Wars out.
Over and out.